Hello, I'm Montgomery County Auditor Carl Keith, and we are here for another episode of Auds and Ends. An exciting episode of Auds and Ends because we're doing a first. We've been doing this now for a little over 2 years, 25 plus episodes we've done, and this is the first time we've ever done one with more than one guest at a time. So I'm very happy to have with me today Stephanie Patino and Vera, who are members of my staff, and we're going to have a great conversation. Our Auds and Ends program is produced by the Montgomery County Auditor's Office. They have assisted with a couple of these productions in the past, but it's produced by my office as a way of telling people, introducing people to community that are doing exciting things or involved in exciting programs, and get to know them a little bit better, and some of the programs and activities that they're involved in. And these two folks I've been impressed with since I've known them. And I haven't known them long, but I've been very impressed with them since I've known them. I'm happy to have them as part of my staff, and so we can get to know them a little bit better, and some of their background, and what they do in the auditor's office, and some of the challenges that they face. Right?
Yes.
So, Stephanie, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to the auditor's office.
Well, thank you so much for having me in the first place, and for trusting me to be part of your team. So before I started at the auditor's office, I did a whole lot of other things. And a lot of the things that I would focus on were mainly advocating for immigrant communities or advocating for those who experienced hunger. And so after accomplishing my master's program and fulfilling that.
Where'd you earn your master's?
I got my master's from the University of Malta and George Mason University. So it was a dual program. 1 year, 2 masters. Will I ever do it again? No. Never again. It was the toughest year of my life.
Okay.
But very rewarding. And so after my master's, I started working for a local immigration attorney, Mohammed Al-Hamdani, and that experience was fantastic. I jumped on board part-time while I was looking for a job, a more stable job, which then happened to be at the auditor's office. While I was working there, however, it was a little bit after Russia had just invaded Ukraine. And so a lot of the applications and the petitions that were coming in were from asylum seekers from Russia, surprisingly, that were crossing Mexico and the Mexican border. And so that was quite interesting while I was there, and I was able to
This is during the time you were working for Muhammad.
Yes, correct.
Okay, right. Mm-hmm.
And so shortly after, I was telling him, hey, I think I'd love to have something a bit more stable, full-time, and at the time, he couldn't hire me full-time, and so that's when he introduced me to your office, and it's been history ever since.
So you are in the position of a community engagement specialist. Is that what we call you?
Yes. Yes, that is my
community
title.
Engagement specialist.
Yeah.
And Marco, I'm going to get to you in a minute because you're kind of in a similar role, but as Marco is not part of our full-time staff. You're a intern that we've been intern. But we brought Stephanie and you in to be involved in some of our community outreach projects and engagement, and but it's kind of changed, hasn't it?
Yes.
It's not exactly. It wasn't exactly what we planned. We brought you in at the time we were doing the triennial update, and so we knew that we would be out in the community, engaging the public about property values and how that impacts their lives. And so you were very much involved in that project when we were doing it initially, correct?
Correct. And it was interesting. I feel like I'm a huge believer in taking leaps of faith, and this was definitely one of them. I had just started, and
it was a leap of faith coming to work for me. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no. The leap of faith for organizing events at this capacity and being trusted with this responsibility so soon into me starting.
Sure.
And so I did it. I organized all of these events. I think there were a total of 80
different events we did during the course of the year.
So
yes,
I did a huge part of those 80 events, organizing them and getting to know people at the Dayton Metro Library and many other locations, and then having connections with the community I'm a huge believer that our community members are our assets, they're our friends, and we can learn so much from them. And so it was a great experience, but holy cow, was it busy. It was super busy.
The triennial update, we increased property values quite a bit across the county, and we knew that was going to be a challenge to communicate with people and to engage them into the process, because it's a process, and we want the community to be engaged in. So that's why we brought you in and had you become part of an expanded team to engage the community in some of the things that we do. And that came along with Marco as well. You know, you assisted us with some of those things. That's how we first met you. Was at some of those community engagement things. You talked about the forums that you organized at the libraries,
Yes.
and you helped us with some of those. And so, give us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, well, I've known Stephanie for quite a long time now, and she would tell me about these events, and she's like, oh, I would like some help. So I was like, well, I'll go help you out with that. And that kind of started this little, I guess, ball rolling, right, to where I am now. And yeah, it was really good being able to see her do what she does and help the community, and actually being able to be a part of that. And I'd like to say that it's been interesting.
Before you were, Stephanie, or maybe at the same time when you were with Muhammad, you worked for the Hall Initiative?
Oh,
What's
that
the
was
time?
prior.
What
Oh
was
my
the
gosh.
timing of that? Yeah.
So I have done so many things in my lifetime trying to figure out what my career path will be. And so
Me too.
I'm
still trying to figure that out.
Many really? Well, I've worn so many hats, and I've done so many things. And so before working for Attorney Al-Hamdani, I was fulfilling my master's abroad, and then before my master's, I was working for the Hall Hunger Initiative. At that point, as a program manager, and before program manager as an AmeriCorps Vista. So I'd volunteered my time to the Hall Hunger Initiative and their mission before being brought on as project manager.
So you've been involved in community engagement activities for some time.
Oh, almost all my life,
Yeah.
yes.
And so you, Marco, we saw her in this role, and it kind of caught your interest as well.
Yeah, honestly, because prior to her, introducing me to the world of volunteering, I did not much of it,
Okay, yeah.
as you could say. But yeah, I actually did help her out a little bit with, not the ID initiative itself, but helping people get their ID sorted, right? So welcoming people, having them seated, just anywhere where I could be of help.
This program that he's talking about is the Miami Valley Community ID program.
Yes.
This is the program that I led under the Hall Hunger Initiative as their project manager. And so this is actually how I introduced, I think, Marco to a lot of our community members too, because for those who aren't familiar with the Miami Valley Community ID card, it's an alternative form of identification here in Montgomery County or the Miami Valley for those who don't have access to a state-issued ID. And that can be so many people. It can be people who are experiencing homelessness, right? And they don't have a state-issued ID because they've lost their birth certificates, and to order them can take months. And so this is a quick, easy fix to requiring an ID or having an ID on hand. Or returning citizens, and then of course our undocumented immigrants who are within our community members and just would need a state-issued ID. And so this program, I guess prior to me being positioned as program manager, was in the books for 6 years. Like, people were trying really hard to make it happen for 6 years, and they just could not get it off the ground for some reason. And at the time, the director of the Hall Hunger Initiative is Mark Willis. He called me. He saw that so this is all happening during coronavirus, the pandemic. And so I was scheduled to go and study abroad. I was first going to study Arabic in Jordan, and then I was going to head on over to Malta to fulfill my master's. And all of that's postponed. All of that is canceled because of the pandemic. And Mark calls me. He sees the opportunity. He's like, Stephanie, I don't see anyone else being able to get this off the ground and getting the ball rolling, you have a year. I know that your program is postponed until next year. If you can do this in a year, I would be forever grateful. I'm like, okay. So I took on the challenge and we started the program, got a bunch of members in our community to form a coalition for the community ID. And that's when I introduced Marco to the community. He was very helpful because he's really good at communicating in Spanish. And so, not that I'm not, but he's just really good at connecting with people easily. And so I brought him on board to have conversations with our community members. And so, yeah, I think that's what you were referring to, right?
Yeah, that's what
and I can attest to that because that was some of the programs that we were doing about the update, the triennial update. He was there, and we had some people in the room that were Hispanic speaking, and I saw him, step up and try to assist them and help, even though he wasn't, working for us at the time. So we really appreciate that, and I think that's a role. Let's just put it on the table here. When we hired you, Stephanie, we didn't hire you because you were bilingual. But it has certainly become a big part of your responsibility, don't you think? And then the same thing with Marco. You're both, right? You both speak Spanish, and that's become a big part of the role you play in the office, has it not?
it has.
Yes, 100%. So when we did one of those presentations, I felt like I really needed to bring someone who speaks Spanish on board, just so that, for example, other staff members within the auditor's office, if they needed to translate something and I wasn't available, Marco could be there to do those translations. And so it was extremely, extremely helpful to us. And so when I started, I did not foresee,
that was not
any
our
of
intention.
what I
That
currently
was
do now.
No.
And so I started thinking that I had all of these things, all of these requirements and things that I needed to do, right, that were mentioned in my interview.
Mm-hmm.
And so shortly after, I think the community in Montgomery County found out that there was a Spanish speaker in the administration building. And so word quickly spread, and I was being called quite frequently to just facilitate many things, like, for example, a tax plan at the treasurer's office for those who had back taxes and wanted a payment plan, and many other things throughout the administration building. The BMV, who had a Spanish speaker and maybe they couldn't communicate their needs.
Mm-hmm.
And so it eventually evolved into me translating and offering those services to facilitate and bridging that communication gap that was missing for quite some time, I think, in the administration building.
Well, it certainly is something that I have witnessed. Over the years, we've had a number of people who come, like with Board of Revision cases that were not fluent in English, and they may have brought one of their children with them to serve as a translator for us, and a variety of languages. I just think you're right. I think the word got out that we had people that were available that could speak Spanish and could be assisted. So yeah, we've had people showing up in our office from all over the place, right? And
Yes.
that's been referred to us, and I've met people by the elevator in the morning, and I don't speak Spanish, but I can say "Cómo estás," or "Buenos días," I can do that, and then direct them to the right place,
Yes.
But it's obviously it's a huge need, and so I think having that available has really made a difference for us. I think having it available, our website now is we updated our website, and now the touch of the button, it can be translated, I think, 138 different languages.
Yes.
And what about the brochures?
Yeah, so we have plenty of brochures now in Spanish that I think were very much needed. So now when we go out to these events, there is information in Spanish, right? So we are continuing to bridge that communication gap, but not just in Spanish.
Not just in Spanish.
We
right?
have brochures. So I feel like the triennial update was extremely important, especially because we were in charge of something that some may see controversial, right? Like, why are my taxes going up? And sometimes it could impact a lot of community members. Why did the value of my home go up? And so these are tough conversations that need to be had. And therefore, I remember feeling like, okay, we need to communicate this effectively. And I may not speak Turkish, I may not speak Russian, but our brochures can definitely help in some way, shape, and form. And so we created a bunch of different brochures in 6 different languages. And I believe the 6 most common languages in Montgomery County are Russian, Turkish, Arabic, Swahili, French, and Spanish.
Right, there you go.
So, yeah.
And I think that was really neat. But not only that, we took it one step further. We did some radio ads. We did some radio ads in Spanish.
Yeah, we did some with La Mega, which is a widely known radio station that many of our parents actually listen to in the mornings before work. And so I think that because we are part of the community, we understand where and how you can reach our community, right? And so we did a couple of ads with La Mega, and those were good too.
Yeah,
it was quite successful.
I just think it's important. I know I live in the city of Dayton, and I know the neighborhood where I'm in has become more and more diversified over the years, and you see it, and it's having access to people who are bilingual or what have you is I think important part of welcoming people and serving the public. The problem it speaks to a little bit is not only is there a language barrier, but because there's a language barrier, they don't always understand the process or the procedures that they need to follow in order to appeal their taxes or question their taxes. And you've helped some people deal with that as well, haven't you?
Yes. While we've been there, I think we've done so many different things, one of them being the appeal process and translating that. We even found out of a community member who has done the appeal process multiple times, and so having him go out into the community and speak about what we do has been really good. It's kind of what I do with my background, which is a lot of grassroots organizing, grassroots connections, connecting with people one-on-one, whether that be through church or other means.
Now, Marco.
Yes.
You're an artist, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
So, I mean, when you were you're studying graphic arts, is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm getting my degree in graphic design right now at St. Clair. Yeah.
And so how does that prepare you for this responsibility, you think? Or does it?
It really did, honestly. If I hadn't taken these courses, I probably wouldn't even be here. Right?
Okay.
Like maybe you would have taken me as an intern to help Stephanie with community engagement. But like I did not see myself working at the auditor's office since I met you a year ago. But honestly, working on my degree led me to this opportunity, and I'm very grateful for that. And I'm grateful to you for allowing me to be a part of the team.
Do you still have plans to be a graphic artist?
I do. So I am currently a freelance artist.
Okay.
Outside of the auditor's office. So I continue to grow each day, and I pursue more knowledge and everything like that. And graphic design was just that, the advancement of my career. So now I have the know-abouts to be able to work in such a wonderful place with the auditor's office, helping Dorian with the graphic design team, and being able to help Stephanie with community engagement.
Well, when we're trying to engage the community, we have to do. We're trying to do it graphically as well, right? And so having those types of skills is important, I think. And some of the things that we've done, the program like this,
we can do it in Spanish if you want.
And we may do that at some point.
Hola, Carl.
No, we have nicknamed you Carlos Keith.
We did a program. One of the projects you've worked on in our office is what we call Buy with Confidence. Do you want to talk a little bit about the Buy with Confidence program?
Yes. Yeah. So kind of going back to that first question, right? Did we anticipate everything that we currently do at the county building? No. No. So when I first started, I saw maybe 1 or 2 folks come in asking me to help them with a payment plan through the treasurer's office and facilitating that process. But then 3 people came, then 4, then 5. And I was like, okay, there's a pattern here. And I have to ask, why is this frequent within my community? And so eventually it turns out that a lot of people within my community were finding homes off of Facebook or homes in alternative paths of purchasing homes, right? Not your traditional home buyer's path. And so when they would go through these alternative routes to purchase a home, turns out a lot of these houses had back taxes that were not disclosed during closing.
Sure.
And so not just back taxes, but sometimes they were scheduled or slated to be demolished, or, for example,
some other type of lien.
Exactly, a lien or a structural nuisance. And so, or they were deemed a structural nuisance through the city of Dayton. And so I had to have these very difficult conversations with them, right? I had to tell them the bad news. Hey, yes, you want to start a payment plan, but did you know that your house is also slated for demolition? What are next steps? Or there was one case that will forever break my heart. She came in, was very optimistic about the payment plan, told me, I have the budget, I'm going to pay these back taxes, I've already started working on my home, my daughter's very happy, my family's very happy, no problem. I know there's back taxes, no problem. Then she gets a knock on the door and they tell her she needs to evacuate because the home is going to be demolished. And if she doesn't bring the home up to code within their time frame, right, which is what the city deems safe for her, it's in her best interest and her family's best interest to get out of the home.
Yeah, they've condemned the home because it's not safe.
Exactly. And so they tell her, hey, you need to get out. It's for your safety and for your family's safety. And so she lost everything. Oh. Right? And so this was a frequent story that was coming through our office. And so we decided that, okay, we may not be able to put a stop to these Facebook ads or so the best way that we can possibly do is through a campaign where we inform our constituents who want to be home buyers through this alternative path that there are some steps that they can take in order for them to not be scammed and to avoid being falling victim to these scams, right? And so they can buy with confidence. That's how we came up with the title, right? So 3 steps: make sure that you check the taxes. Is it on a demolition list or a structural nuisance list? You can check in with your city. And then lastly, hiring a title search agent, someone that can search that title for you, making sure that there is nothing that we personally at the county cannot see, right?
What we had here were people who came to our community and they're looking for their part of the American dream, right? And so they think buying a home, owning property is part of the American dream, right? And so but they were being misled, and that still goes on, and we're just trying to help with that. And it's buying with confidence is what we called it. What do you call it?
Compra con confianza.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
One time for the viewers.
So
I'm kidding, Carl.
I wish. I for years have. Again, I've been in the county auditor now almost 24 years. Been in the auditor's office since '91, and I have to tell you, this has always been something to me that I would always. And I took Spanish courses when I was in school, and I've always wished that I was more fluent in it because I've always had opportunities in the public to deal with people who do not speak our language or are not fluent in English, and I just wish I could be more help. So what you're doing is really important work. Because no one, I don't care how big a percentage it is, but no one deserves to be taken advantage of or misled simply because they don't speak the language, And like I said, it's not just a language barrier, but because of the language barrier, it hurts their ability to understand the process too, and that's not fair either. That's not fair. We want them to be able to be engaged in the community. That's what America is always about. All about,
it's
right?
all about the unity.
Right. Yeah. And so what you're doing is very important work, and we're so happy to have you as part of our team.
Thank you.
And and working with the folks in the community like you do, it's we've got festivals that we get involved in. Some when you talk about the different events you do. We did the triennial update events, but you're also out there doing festivals and things like that. And do we have anything coming up? Isn't this Hispanic American Month? Isn't that
Hispanic Heritage Month? Yes.
So we'll be doing some things with that, right?
Yes. So we are participating, and we will have a booth at the Hispanic Heritage Festival, September 21st, if I'm not mistaken. It's a Saturday.
Okay.
So we'll be there all day, and we had a really good time last year. So we're thinking the same this year.
Sure. And it's down at Riverscape.
Yes.
We're down there all day, and there's lots of food, and I remember dancing and
Yeah.
all kinds of things going on down
It's
there.
a lot of fun.
It's a lot
There's
of
a
fun.
parade in the morning
Oh,
where
okay.
you can see all the different countries that live in Montgomery County. So,
You'll see us with our flag.
Okay. Very good.
yes.
Well, thank you both for being my guests.
course.
I've had a lot of different guests over the years, over the 2 years. 2 years we've been doing this, and I've had a lot of different guests. But it's nice to have a couple people that work in the office and can talk about a little bit what your responsibilities and what you're doing in the office, and it's important work, and we appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Carl.
for having us.
So that's going to wrap us up for another episode of Auds and Ends for this month, and so we will see you next time. Thank you very much for joining us.